At 9 a.m. this Saturday, January 24, 2026, the politically impossible detonated. A judge of the Supreme Court of the state of New York signed an order that no American president has ever faced. Not a threat, not a warning, an order of immediate execution. At this very moment, as you watch this video, the New York City Sheriff's Office is preparing to serve foreclosure notices on some of the most iconic properties in the Trump portfolio. 40 Wall Street, the commercial spaces of Trump Tower, possibly the private jet. The Teflon melted. For the first time in American history, a sitting president is facing the active liquidation of his private business empire by a hostile state government. And it is not because of a crime. It is not because of an impeachment. It is because of Tokyo. But it's not just the headline that has Mar-a-Lago in full panic mode this morning. It's who is enforcing this order. It's when this is happening. And it's what this triggers. The Secret Service is, literally at this moment, in a standoff with local law enforcement over access to these buildings. White House counsel is screaming for the Supreme Court to intervene, and the president is, reportedly, apoplectic, threatening to federalize the National Guard to protect his property. Let that sink in for a second. The President of the United States may be about to order federal troops to surround his own tower to prevent a sheriff from executing a civil court order. This is not politics. This is not theater. This is the collapse of the firewall between power and property that has kept the Republic functioning for 250 years. And it all started with a bond crash in Tokyo at 3 a.m. on Friday. To understand why the sheriff is moving today, why now, why so fast, why without warning, we need to understand the financial plumbing that failed last night. And I need to warn you, when you understand the full chain of events, you'll realize this is not about Trump. It's about what happens when global systems break and drag everyone down with them. Let's go back to 2024. Remember the $464 million civil fraud judgment brought by Letitia James? Trump appealed. To prevent the seizure of his assets while the appeal was pending, he had to post a bond. A surety company stepped in, guaranteed it for him, and posted the collateral. For 2 years, that bond held. It was the dam holding back the floodwaters. But yesterday, the global financial system shook. The Japanese bond market collapsed. The yen carry trade unwound. Trillions of dollars in liquidity evaporated from the global banking system in hours. And here's the part nobody saw coming. According to leaked reports from the Wall Street Journal, the reinsurance consortium backing Trump's appeal bond was heavily exposed to Japanese commercial debt. When Tokyo collapsed, its balance sheet imploded in the early hours of Friday morning. Regulators, or the company's own risk committee, forced a de-risking event. They informed the New York court that they could no longer guarantee Trump's judgment. They pulled the bond. Normally, a defendant has 30 days to find a replacement bond. But this is New York. This is Letitia James. And this is a judge who has lost all patience. The court ruled that, given the precarious liquidity position of the defendant and the global financial instability, no grace period would be granted. The logic was brutal. If the president is truly worth billions, he can write a check. If he cannot write a check, then the assets must be secured now, before they lose value in a falling market. The order was signed at 9 a.m. Immediate execution. Donald Trump, the President of the United States, effectively received a margin call on the work of his life. And he couldn't meet it. This is only the beginning. What I'm about to show you in the next few minutes about which assets are on the execution list and how the Secret Service may respond will not appear on any mainstream news channel. Subscribe to the channel now, because when this escalates, and it will escalate, you'll want to be informed before everyone else. But before we get to the specific assets, there's one piece of this puzzle that turns this from a legal crisis into an existential one. So, what does Letitia James take? She doesn't want the golf courses. They're hard to sell, losing money, and full of legal complications. She wants cash flow. She wants trophy assets. Target 1, 40 Wall Street, the Trump Building. This is the crown jewel of the liquidation list. It's a massive skyscraper in the financial district. But here's the detail. Trump does not own the land. He owns the ground lease. Ground leases are tricky. If you default on debts or judgments, the lease can be terminated or sold. Taking 40 Wall Street hits Trump where it hurts, his identity as a New York magnate. It's valuable, it's relatively liquid, and it's symbolic. Target 2, Trump Tower, commercial and retail. Not the penthouse yet, the lower floors, the Gucci store, the atrium, the office space. The sheriff can appoint a receiver. Now, let me explain what that means, because this is the most devastating legal weapon you've never heard of. A receiver is a court-appointed CEO who takes over the building. Picture this, a bureaucrat appointed by a Democratic Attorney General walking into Trump Tower, firing Trump Organization management, and redirecting every rent check from tenants directly to the state of New York. The president would still own it on paper, but he would lose control. He would lose the cash flow. He would be a tenant in his own building. But wait, it gets worse. Target 3, the Seven Springs property. This is the Westchester estate that was at the heart of the fraud case. Inflated valuations. It's low-hanging fruit. It's not his home. It's an investment property. Seizing it is clean. Target 4, the bank accounts. This is the most immediate threat. The sheriff can send a garnishment order to every bank in New York, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo. Any account with the name Trump Organization is frozen. The money is siphoned to pay the judgment. If this happens on a Monday morning during payroll, Trump's employees don't get paid. The housekeepers at the hotels, the doormen, the executives, the checks bounce. This is how you kill a company in 24 hours. And now, here's the part they don't want you to know. Real estate is built on debt. Trump has loans on these buildings, hundreds of millions owed to lenders like Ladder, Axos Bank, etc. Almost every commercial loan has a clause called bad boy guarantees or judgment defaults. It says, if you receive a massive civil judgment against you that you cannot pay, or if your assets are seized, you are technically in default on the mortgage. Even if Trump is current on his monthly mortgage payments, the seizure order itself can trigger a default. If lenders declare default, they can call the loan, "Pay us the full $100 million now." Trump doesn't have it, so the banks foreclose on top of the state's seizure. It becomes a feeding frenzy. The state wants the equity. The bank wants the principal. The asset gets torn apart. Let that sink in for a second. We're talking about a cascading asset seizure effect that can disintegrate a multi-billion-dollar empire in a matter of days. If you're watching this far, you already know more than 99% of people about how this global financial crisis is connected to the domestic presidential crisis. But there is much more coming. Click subscribe and turn on notifications, because when the next bomb drops, and it will drop, you'll want to know before everyone else. Now, let me show you exactly why this turns from a financial crisis into a constitutional crisis. Let's dive into the legal mechanics for a moment, because this is where it gets truly terrifying. Under New York law, CPLR Article 52, a judge can appoint a receiver to administer the property of a judgment debtor. This is not just a monitor. This is a replacement for the owner. The receiver has the power to collect rents. Every tenant at 40 Wall Street, the law firms, the businesses, gets a letter. Do not pay Trump. Pay the receiver. Manage operations. The receiver decides who cleans the floors, who works security, and who gets fired. They can fire Trump's children if they're on payroll. Sell the asset. If cash flow is insufficient to satisfy the judgment, the receiver can list the building for sale. Imagine the psychological warfare of this. Eric Trump or Don Jr. show up to work at Trump Tower. The receiver, a court-appointed attorney, likely a Democrat or a neutral institutional figure, calls them into a conference room and says, "Hand over your keys. You are relieved of your duties." They can't call their father. The father can't do anything. The receiver answers only to the judge. This is a state-sanctioned, hostile takeover. It turns the Trump organization into a zombie entity that exists solely to pay Letitia James. Here's the other shoe dropping, and in a Japan crash environment, banks are not going to be lenient. They want their money back. They will accelerate the loans immediately to protect their own balance sheets. This is the asset seizure domino effect. One card falls, and the entire tower comes down. The last time we saw this kind of legal collapse of a business empire under a political leader was… actually, never. We are in completely uncharted territory. But there is a historical precedent nobody is mentioning: Nixon's Saturday Night Massacre. When a president tries to use executive power to block legitimate judicial processes, we know exactly how that story ends, with resignation or impeachment. And now, all of these separate crises are converging. So, to recap where we are on this Saturday, January 24th, 2026. Crisis 1. The Japanese bond market collapsed, plus global liquidity evaporated. Crisis 2. Trump's appeal bond was pulled, plus he failed to replace it within 24 hours. Crisis 3. The immediate execution order was issued, plus the sheriff is preparing seizure notices. Crisis 4. The Secret Service is in a standoff with local authorities, plus access to buildings is denied. Crisis 5. Creditors may trigger loan defaults, plus cascading foreclosures. This is not one crisis. It is 5 crises detonating simultaneously, and nobody has a plan to contain all of them at once. But here's what really keeps strategists awake tonight. Trump Tower is not just an office building. It is the private residence of the President of the United States. It is a fortress. The Secret Service controls the perimeter. They control the elevators. They control the airspace. The New York City Sheriff is a law enforcement officer. He has a court order signed by a judge commanding him to enter the premises and inventory assets. So what happens when the sheriff approaches the revolving doors on Fifth Avenue? The scenario. The sheriff approaches. The Secret Service agent steps in the way. "Sir, you cannot enter. This is a secure zone protecting the National Command Authority." The sheriff says, "I have a warrant to seize this property." The agent says, "Federal law supersedes state law. For security reasons, access is denied." That is a standoff. Guns are present. Egos are massive. If Trump orders the Secret Service to physically block the sheriff from executing a lawful civil order on a commercial property, he is entering obstruction of justice territory. But Trump will argue they are trying to bankrupt the president to prevent him from governing. This is a coup by other means. Sources inside the White House describe the atmosphere as nuclear. Remember, Trump sees his net worth as his soul. He sees his buildings as his children. To him, this is not a legal dispute. It is an assassination attempt. At this very moment, the Capitol is empty. C-SPAN cameras film an abandoned speaker's chair. And meanwhile, at Mar-a-Lago, the lights are on, but no one is answering the phone. What does Putin think when he sees this? What does Xi Jinping think? They see a weak American leader. They see a leader who cannot even protect his own home. In authoritarian cultures, power is absolute. The idea that a local judge could seize the emperor's palace is laughable. They interpret this as American chaos. Democracy doesn't work. Look at them. They are devouring their own president. This emboldens them. It makes threats to Greenland look like bluffs. If he can't stop Letitia James, how is he going to stop the People's Liberation Army? Power projection depends on the projection of stability. A sheriff's notice at Trump Tower is a billboard advertising American instability to the world. This is not speculation. This is not conspiracy theory. This is happening now, as you watch. And it will get worse before it gets better. If you're not subscribed yet, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because in the next 24 to 48 hours, we are going to see developments that will redefine everything. When this blows up, and it will blow up, subscribers will know first. don't be left out. Now, what happens next? The fortress has fallen, the bond has evaporated, and the presidency is in survival mode. We are witnessing the final stress test of the American Republic. Can the law touch the highest office? Can the system survive the backlash if it does? And can the economy survive the crossfire? We are in uncharted waters. The maps are useless. The sheriff is at the door. The bond market is burning, and the president is cornered. History teaches us that cornered leaders are dangerous. In the next hours, watch for the appointment of the receiver, the bank garnishment notices, the Truth Social storm, and, most importantly, the Japanese markets when they open Sunday night US time. If the financial crash continues, Trump's personal problems will become the least of our worries. But for a man sitting in the White House watching his name being stripped from the facades of the work of his life, this is the apocalypse. The Trump empire is under siege, and this time, the walls are truly being breached. The question nobody wants to ask: when will the military say no? Subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell, and share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening. See you in the next one, if there is a next one. The countdown has begun.